Have you ever felt a strange emptiness after an intense moment of intimacy? A subtle yet persistent sensation, as if something had escaped from you, leaving behind an absence you can't quite explain. This phenomenon is more common than you might think. Many people feel it without ever putting it into words. Some describe it as a loss of energy, others as a sudden lack of meaning. But what if this emptiness wasn't just an emotional reaction, but rather a profound signal from your psyche? Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers in modern psychology, deeply explored how our relationships influence our mind and energy. For him, every intimate connection is much more than just a physical or emotional exchange. It's a psychological and spiritual phenomenon that leaves a lasting imprint on our unconscious. In this video, I'm going to reveal the truth that no one tells you about what happens to your mind, your energy, and your psyche after intimacy, and most importantly, how you can free yourself from these invisible bonds before they continue to imprison you. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share might forever change the way you connect with others. When we get close to someone, we often believe it's just a simple exchange of emotions, a connection that exists only in the present moment. However, according to Carl Jung, our relationships run much deeper than they seem. Every intimate interaction leaves a lasting imprint on our psyche. Why? Because we never attach to someone randomly. Behind every relationship, an unconscious dynamic is at play. We project onto the other person our expectations, our unresolved wounds, our deepest hidden desires. This is what Jung called psychological projection. When we fall in love, we don't see the other person as they truly are. We project onto them an image, an idea shaped by our unconscious. We are not only drawn to a person, but to what they represent for us, a source of comfort, a mirror of our desires, sometimes even an escape from our own insecurities. But what happens when this illusion collapses? When the other person no longer matches the image we created? That's often when the emptiness appears. It's not just the absence of the other person that affects us, but the loss of that part of ourselves that we had unconsciously projected onto them. And this effect is even more intense for people who tend to give too much in their relationships. They invest so much energy in the other person that when the connection breaks, they feel a deep void. But this void was already there before, and the relationship merely brought it to light. Intimacy doesn't just leave a mark on us through love or attachment. It also highlights hidden aspects of our psyche. It is these invisible fragments of ourselves that, after separation, leave us with this feeling of emptiness. But is this emptiness just an illusion? Or is it a sign that we have left a part of ourselves in that relationship? Have you ever felt, even after a breakup or separation, the lingering presence of someone in your mind, as if that person was still there, even in their absence? This phenomenon isn't just about memories or nostalgia. It is also connected to an energetic reality. Carl Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, a vast psychic web where our minds are interconnected. But this connection isn't limited to the unconscious. It also extends to our energy. Every intimate relationship creates an invisible bond, an energetic imprint that can last long after physical contact has ended. When we share intimacy with someone, we exchange much more than words or emotions. We share our vital energy. Some people leave us feeling whole and balanced, while others drain us, exhaust us, without us even understanding why. This is what some call energetic cords. Imagine that every intimate interaction creates an invisible thread connecting your energy field to the other person's. The more intense the exchange, the stronger the bond. And the stronger the bond, the harder it is to break free from it. This is why some relationships continue to haunt us even after they end. It's not just about memories or emotional attachment, but also about a persistent energetic imprint. We carry fragments of the other person within us, and sometimes this can create a void, an inexplicable sense of lack. We often think we've moved on, but something within us still bears the weight of that connection. Have you ever noticed someone who leaves a toxic relationship, convinced they have moved on, only to feel emotionally drained months later, burdened by an unexplained heaviness? Nostalgia lingers without any apparent reason. It's not just psychological. It's a clear sign that the energetic bond is still active. So how can we free ourselves from these invisible imprints and regain control of our own inner space? The emptiness felt after intimacy often reveals a deeper reality rooted in our psyche. Carl Jung teaches us that when we attach ourselves to someone, we are not just bonding with that person. We are also bonding with a part of ourselves that we have projected onto them. But what happens when that connection is broken? the absence of the other becomes a brutal reminder of an inner void that was already there long before the relationship. A void that we tried, consciously or not, to fill through the other person. Jung's theory of the shadow is essential to understanding this phenomenon. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we prefer to ignore, our insecurities, childhood wounds, deep fears. In an intimate relationship, these buried aspects of our psyche surface, often in the form of unconscious expectations. This is why some relationships bring a sense of euphoria and fulfillment, while others leave us with a lingering sense of incompleteness and frustration. We expect the other person to fill a void, to soothe a fear, to validate our existence. But when the relationship ends, those expectations remain unmet, and that void becomes painfully visible. Someone who has always feared abandonment may find a sense of security in a relationship, but once the connection is broken, that fear resurfaces, amplified by the absence. It is not so much the loss of the other person that creates suffering, but the reactivation of a wound that already existed. The emptiness that haunts you after intimacy is not a sign of weakness or dependency. It is a message from your psyche, an invitation to explore what within you is asking for attention. If this void persists after intimacy, it is not just because the other person is gone. It is because they awakened something in you, something that was already there long before they entered your life. Carl Jung explained that our relationships are not just surface-level interactions. They are powerful mirrors of our inner world. What we feel after intimacy is often a reflection of what is hidden in our unconscious. When you become deeply attached to someone, it is not just because of their qualities or appearance. It is because they represent something symbolic to you, an ideal, a response to an unmet need, an escape from an unconscious fear. But when the relationship ends, that illusion collapses, and you are left facing what you had tried to avoid. That void is not the absence of the other person. It is the abrupt return to an inner solitude that the relationship had temporarily masked. Intimacy has this strange ability to bring our deepest wounds to the surface. You thought love would free you from your insecurities, yet it amplified them. You believed the presence of the other would give you meaning, yet their absence has thrown you into confusion. Jung warns us about this illusion. When we expect someone else to complete us, we give them a power they can never truly hold. But how do we break free from this cycle? How do we stop feeling this emptiness after intimacy and regain true emotional independence? The answer is not to avoid relationships or flee from attachment. It is to learn to be whole within yourself. It is to understand that love and intimacy must be conscious choices, not desperate attempts to fill a void that no one but you can fill. Freeing yourself from this emptiness does not mean rejecting love, but learning to love without losing yourself. It does not mean cutting off all ties to intimacy, but rather understanding how these connections influence your energy and inner balance. Jung teaches us that we are constantly exchanging fragments of ourselves with others. When a relationship carries intense emotional and physical energy, it creates invisible bonds that do not instantly disappear. These bonds can either uplift us or trap us in a cycle of attachment and lack. It is essential to recognize the impact of these exchanges in order to detach from them consciously. Some relationships leave us with a sense of wholeness and growth, while others drain us without us understanding why. After intimacy, we may sometimes feel unexplained fatigue, persistent nostalgia, or a sense of being emotionally depleted. This does not necessarily mean that the person we shared the moment with was toxic, but rather that we may have absorbed emotions, expectations, or wounds that do not belong to us. So how can we free ourselves from these invisible imprints and take back control of our inner space? The first step is to recognize these bonds. Instead of fighting against this emptiness or trying to fill it with a new relationship, it is important to take a moment to observe what it reveals about ourselves. What part of you was activated by this connection? What unconscious need were you trying to fulfill? By understanding this, you reclaim power over your energy and emotions. Next, you can use recentering practices to cut ties that no longer serve your well-being. Visualization is an effective technique. Imagine these connections as threads of energy that you gently release, thanking the experience for what it has taught you. Other methods, such as introspective writing, meditation, or simply spending time alone in a peaceful environment, can help you regain a solid sense of grounding. But beyond these practices, the key to no longer suffering from this emptiness is learning to nourish your own energy. When you feel whole within yourself, intimacy is no longer an attempt to fill a void, but a natural extension of your inner well-being. Loving without dependence, sharing without losing yourself. That is true emotional freedom. The emptiness after intimacy is not a curse. It is not a flaw, nor a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a message, a silent call from your unconscious, inviting you to look deeper within, to understand what within you is still waiting to be acknowledged. Carl Jung teaches us that the true path to emotional balance lies in individuation, the process of integrating all parts of ourselves, including those we tend to project onto others. The emptiness you feel is not a sign of external lack, but the reflection of an unfinished inner dialogue. So how can you transform this emptiness into a space for renewal? First, by changing the way you perceive relationships. Instead of seeing intimacy as a way to feel complete, view it as a meeting between two already whole individuals, a space for sharing, not a fusion where one must complete the other. Next, by cultivating a deep connection with yourself. The more you learn about yourself, the more you are able to enter relationships where the exchange is balanced, without feeling like you are leaving a part of yourself behind. Finally, by accepting that some connections leave an imprint, and that's normal. This is not something to fear or avoid, but rather to integrate. Some people leave a mark on our lives not because we need them, but because they played a role in our evolution. What matters is not clinging to them or trying to forget, but taking from each relationship a lesson that brings us closer to ourselves. So, the next time you feel that emptiness after intimacy, don't see it as a pain to avoid. See it as an opportunity for exploration, because in the end, what we seek in others is often a reflection of what we must find within ourselves. When we understand this, our relationships no longer become a way to escape our insecurities, but a space for authentic and balanced sharing. By applying these insights, you can not only better understand your emotions, but also transform your relationships into enriching experiences that don't leave a void, but rather an expansion of the self. If this topic resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue exploring these themes with us. And if you stayed until the end, comment, "I free myself from invisible bonds," to show that you are committed to this inner transformation. See you in the next video.